welcome to our YouTube channel where we talk about the different topics under the different subjects of the BS Criminology program. So for this session, pag-uusapan naman natin, ipagpapatuloy natin ang ating pag-uusap dito sa Fundamentals of Criminal Investigation with Intelligence. The very basic, the foundation subject for the criminal detection and investigation area of the BS in criminology. So, if I am not mistaken, we are now on the second topic of this particular subject, which is all about criminal intelligence, the intelligence cycle. So, sabi nga natin, inuna muna natin yung discussion sa intelligence before we go to criminal investigation. Okay? So, nandito na tayo sa second topic, which is criminal intelligence cycle. Okay, so in this particular topic, we are going to talk about intelligence and information, their difference and their relationship with each other, the phases of the intelligence. So that will be the gist of our discussion for this evening. And we will have a special topic in the collection phase, one of the phases of the intelligence cycle, collection. Okay, and in that particular special topic, pag-uusapan natin yung tungkol sa police intelligence operation. So kung handa na ang lahat, umpisahan na natin to. Okay? So let's start with the word information. So ano ba tong information na to? Ano bang relasyon na to sa intelligence? At ano ba yung pagkakaiba niya kumpara sa tinatawag natin na intel? When we say information, that is raw data. Hilaw itong datos. Okay? This is an unevaluated material of every description derived from observation, communication, reports, etc. So when we say information, it may or may not have any value on intelligence or in the investigation. Okay? So those information which has value to the intelligence or to the investigation is what we call intel information. Okay? So intel information by definition refers to any information gathered or received which is of intelligence interest. Meaning, kung magagamit natin siya sa intelligence, then that is classified as an intel information. When we are talking about the sources of information, we may be able to classify three different sources. Number one is the open source, where the information is readily available. Sa oras na magkaroon tayo ng hold sa source na to, madali natin makukuha ang information. So ano-ano ba yung mga examples ng open sources? The enemy activity itself, di ba? The statements of the prisoners of war or of the civilians. Okay, the captured documents from the enemy, the maps that we are able to gather, the weather forecast, studies and researches, and some other kinds of reports. While on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin na closed sources, hindi dito readily available ang information. So medyo mahirap yung paraan ng pagkalap ng impormasyon. So those closed sources has, for example, galing ito sa mga surveillance, sa casing, elicitation, sa pahirapan ng pag-interview, bugging or tapping, tactical interrogation, observation, and description. Ngayon, kapag hindi natin ma-classify if the source of an information is an open or a closed source, then we will categorize it as an other source. Okay? So examples of other sources may include routine patrol, criminal investigation, informants, and searches, di ba? Kasi minsan available, minsan hindi naman available. Right? So those are the primary avenues where we can get the information, particularly those which we need, which we call intel information. So nabanggit nga natin during our last discussion na ang information and intel is very related to each other because when we evaluate the information and transform it to a useful information, then that becomes intelligence. Now the process, okay, the process of transforming information to intelligence is what we call the intelligence cycle, which has 5 different phases. But for the sake of our subject, Fundamentals of Criminal Investigation and Intelligence, we will only have 4 different steps. Number 1 is planning, okay? The same with the figure that you see in your in our presentation. Number 2, step 2 is data collection. Number 3 is processing, which we are going to combine with number 4, analysis and production. So for dito sa subject natin, Fundamentals of Criminal Investigation and Intelligence, step 3 and step 4 is combined. And that is the process of evaluating the information, of processing the information. So that, pagkatapos niyan, papasok na tayo sa step 4. Pero step 5 na yan dito sa ating figure, which is dissemination and feedback. So sabi nga natin, kahit anong bansa pa yan, ano man ang kapasidad ng intelligence gathering mechanisms ng bansang yan, lagi yan magkakapareho sa tatlong bagay. The process of collection, evaluation, and dissemination. And the last activity will always be dissemination. Okay? Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that intelligence cycle is a continuous process. It's a never-ending process. Bakit? Yung information, kapag na-transform yan natin into intelligence, gagamitin natin yan. Yung intelligence na yan to another intelligence cycle. So, lagi yan magpapatuloy. Laging iikot ang intelligence cycle. Why? Because we have a mission. Okay? So, what is a mission? When we say mission, yun yung focal point of the intelligence operation. We have something to do. And in order to do that, we have to transform the information that we need into useful information, which we now call intelligence. Right? So that is all about the intelligence cycle. Again, intelligence cycle is the process through which intelligence is obtained. That is planning and collection, produced, that is the processing, and made available to users, and that will be dissemination. Okay, so that's intelligence cycle. Now let's talk more about the different phases of intelligence cycle. And number one is directing collection effort, or simply intelligence planning. Kahit ano naman kasing bagay, di ba? Mag-uumpisa lahat sa pagpaplano. Pero ang tanong, ano ba yung dapat pagplanuhan? So dito sa phase na to, sa directing collection effort or intelligence planning, the Intel Staff Officer or what we call the unit commander, yung pinaka-head ng intelligence effort na yon, will determine the required or important information relevant to the mission. Ano ba yung kailangan natin? Okay? Ano ba yung kailangan natin? So that is the very first question that we need to answer. Anong klaseng impormasyon ba yung kailangan natin? Is that going to be used strategically, or is that are we going to use it in combat? Diba? Is that of a national interest or only departmental interest? Diba? Doon na yun papasok yung mga questions na yun. And then, right after determining what is the required or important information, we need to identify who will use the information. So we have to determine the intelligence requirements, which we may divide into 4 different categories. Okay? Executive ba ang nangangailangan yan? Contributory ba yan? Operational ba siya or is it collateral? Now, to differentiate one after the another, when we say executive, ang nangangailangan nito ay yung gobyerno mismo at yung mga military commanders. Okay? So, those kinds of intelligence information or those kinds of intelligence that we are going to use for the sake of the government and for the use of the military with them, 2 of them, that is what we call executive. Okay? Executive intelligence requirement. While on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin na contributory, this is required to complete a staff process, such as making plans, estimates, and contributes to decision making. So it's not really of military or governmental nature or political nature. Okay? So, contributory lang ito. Just for the sake of staff process. While on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin na operational intelligence, this is if required in planning and carrying out effectively the decision or policy announced. So, we are going to apply it now in the operation. Okay? Kaya siya magiging operational. But, lastly, on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin na collateral, then that is required by other higher adjacent echelons. Okay? Kapag iba ang nangangailangan, collateral. Kung gagamitin natin ito sa ating pulisiya, operational. If gagamitin natin to for planning and to contribute to decision making, contributory. But if this is needed by the government and the military, then that is executive. Okay? So those are the different types of intelligence requirement. Nabanggit natin kanina that the first question that we need to answer in planning intelligence or the collection effort is to identify the required or important information which is relevant to the mission. And that required or important information relevant to the mission is what we call the EEI. okay, or the essential elements of information. So just to give you a clearer definition, EEI, or essential elements of information, refers to items of intelligence or information of the characteristic of the area of operations. So we need to know, di ba? We need to know the area where we are going to get the intelligence, and that need to know that particular area is what we call essential elements of information. And the enemy, which the commander feels needed before he can reasonably arrive at a decision. Okay? Aside from EEI, we also need to establish our priorities. Di ba? It is necessary to decide which items of information are more important. So we have to have a system of priority in order to identify the critical importance with compared to which is lesser important, diba? Highest priority requirement essential to planning. Okay? So that is the planning phase. Now, after planning, we now go to collecting of information. So in this phase, the collecting agency, or the group of people, or the body or the agency which will collect the information, should identify or determine what specific information is to be collected, who will collect that information, and from where will that information come from. Okay, so when we say collection agency, that talks about any person, unit, or activity that collects the information through processes like research, surveillance, or exploitation of the source of information. So, how are information collected? Ang daming paraan. Diba? Ang daming paraan para mag-collecta ng information by the collection agencies. They can do photography, they can do surveillance, they can utilize elicitation, they can have interview, personal security investigation, so use of sound equipments, use of artists, repetitious entry, and communication. Okay, so that is collection of information. Now, if we are now able to identify which collection agency and from whom will the information be collected and what are the process that we are going to use to collect the information, then we collect it. Okay, di ba? And once that information is collected, dediretso na tayo sa processing of collected information. But before we process the collected information, we have to identify the factors to be considered in planning collection efforts, 'di ba? Kailangan natin malaman yung mga factors na dapat nating bigyan ng atensyon bago tayo magkolekta or magplano ng pagko-collection. And what are those factors that we are talking about? Number one, personality. 'Di ba? Before we go to the area of operation, we have to identify the persons involved in that particular area. So, who are the suspects? What are their social status? What kind of persons are they? Okay, and then we also need to consider the organization which operates in the area. What kind of group is that? Is that a criminal group? Is that just a simple group or a corporate? Diba? We have to identify that. And then the next thing that we need to consider is the resource itself. Diba? Ano ba yung ginagamit na equipment ng grupong yan? Armado ba yan? Or are they using highly technologically advanced equipments, etc. Okay? And then the lastly, activity. Diba? What is the modus operandi of that particular organization? Where do they attack, etc. All information regarding their activity. Now, once you are able to consider the personality, the organization, the resource, and the activity, then you may be able to plan properly on how to collect the information, and you will be successful enough to collect your needed information. And once those informations are collected, we now go to phase 3, which is processing of collected information. So in this phase, the data is converted into a usable product. So ito na yung evaluation. Dito na sa phase na to, nata-transform yung information to intelligence. Okay? And then right after that, okay, when we say processing of information, we consider three more steps. Okay? When we process the information, tatlong bagay ang ginagawa natin. First, we record, and then we evaluate, and then we interpret. So, let us differentiate one from the other. First one is record. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng pagre-record? So, this is the reduction of information into writing or some other form of graphical representation and the arranging of this information into groups of related items. Okay? Information may be taken anywhere. Di ba? Marami tayong makukuhang information on the process of collecting those information. And napakagulo ng pagkakaayos na yon. So we have to organize, di ba? We have to select which item is related to each other. And in order to do that, we have to transform those information which we get, especially those which we are taken from the words of the mouth. Diba? From our observation alone. So, kailangan natin siyang isulat or kailangan natin siyang i-transform into some other graphical secret representation para hindi tayo maguluhan. Okay? And that process is what we call recording. Now, after recording the information, we now evaluate it. Okay? So, when we say evaluate, we determine the pertinence, number one, and the second, reliability. Okay? When we say pertinence, that is the relationship. Gaano ba ito kahalaga sa operation? Okay? And when we say reliability, gaano ba ka-reliable yung source? And lastly, accuracy. Gaano ba katotoo yung information na yon? Or examination of the raw information to determine its intelligence value. Now, in evaluation, we have things to be considered. Diba? So, again, pertinence, reliability, and accuracy. So, when we say pertinence, we basically ask the question, does it hold some value to current operation? Kailangan ba natin ito? Kailangan ba natin ito agad-agad at sino ba yung nangangailangan na to? Now, if you are able to answer those particular questions, then okay ka na sa pertinence. Okay? And then next one, we have to check the reliability of the source. Okay? So when we check the reliability of the source, we use criteria. Okay? We use criteria, and those criteria are the following: experience, knowledge, and training. So the more experienced the source is, the more knowledgeable the source is, the more trained the source is, the more reliable the information. Okay? So, yun yung criteria natin sa pag-check ng reliability of the source of information. And lastly, accuracy. Gaano ba katotoo? Diba? What is the probability of the truth of that particular information? Okay? So, in order to do that, we have to answer some questions too. Is it possible for the reported fact or event to have taken place? Posible ba mangyari yon? Is the report consistent with itself? Or paiba-iba ba ng kwento? Diba? Kasi kung paiba-iba, then it is not accurate. Does the report agree with information from other agencies or sources? Diba? Kasi hindi lang naman sa kanya pwedeng manggaling yung information na yan. Diba? Now, if this is verified by other sources or agencies, then it should be near the reality. Should be totoo. Diba? Is the report confirmed or corroborated? Kumpirmado ba yung impormasyon na yan or pinagtagpi-tagpi lang para mabuo? Diba? So, once pertinence, reliability, and accuracy is checked, then you have good evaluation. And in order to guide you to properly evaluate the information, we are using an evaluation guide. Okay, we are using an evaluation guide. And in this evaluation guide, we use this particular table. Okay, meron tayong table dyan sa evaluation guide. So, in the evaluation guide, we check the reliability of the information, the accuracy of the information, and the source of information. So, for the letters A, B, C, D, E, and F, we are looking into the reliability of the information. So, when you categorize the information as A, that means that the source of the information is completely reliable. While on the other hand, if it is categorized as F, we cannot judge the reliability of the source. Okay. Second, accuracy. So in this particular column, we are using numbers 1 to 6. Number 1, that means it is confirmed by other sources. Then that means the information is really true. Okay, and then it goes down as the number goes up. So when we reach number 6, that means that the truth cannot be judged. Number 5, impossible, and so on and so forth. And for the source of information, we have the letters T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So it depends on the source. When we say T, then the source of information is the direct observation of the commander or unit. Diba? Sila mismo yung naka-observe. Sila mismo yung direktang nag-obserba nung, nung grupo in order to get the accuracy of the information. While if it is categorized as you, okay, so basically the source of information is a DPA or a deep penetrating agent or a residing agent. May tao tayo doon sa loob. Okay? And sa kanila galing yung information. When we say V, then that is from the reports of the PNP or the AFP troops. When we say W, then then the information came from the result of interrogation. X, if the information came from civilian or government employee observation. Y, if it is reported by a civilian. And letter Z, if the source of information are documents. Okay? So basically, kapag sinabi natin na, let's say for example, we have a situation where the information came from the suspect himself during custodial investigation, and we know that that particular suspect is magaling magsinungaling. Okay? So, pero basing on the accuracy of information, pwede nating sabihin na posibleng totoo yung information niya. So, that kind of information may be evaluated as E3W. Diba? E3W. Unreliable, the source of the information, but possibly true because that is the result of interrogation. Okay, so that is how we utilize this evaluation guide. Alright? So if that is clear, kung malinaw na siya, balik tayo dito sa ating last phase in the processing phase, which is interpretation. So this is the process of establishing the meaning and significance of the information. So we now put meaning into our evaluated information. And when we do interpretation, we also have three processes involved. Diba? Kapag nagpa-process tayo ng information, meron din tayong sinusunod. Analysis, integration, and deduction. So when we say analysis, this refers to the determination of the significance of information relative to the information and intelligence already known. Diba? Kasi sabi nga natin kanina, intelligence is a continuous process. Yung dati natin intel, gagamitin natin yon for comparison purposes sa bagong intelligence cycle na ginagawa natin. So that old intel, yung dati natin intel, that is what we call intelligence already known. Does it have any significance to the intelligence that we are able to process today? Diba? So, yun yung analysis. Ikukumpara natin siya. And then, we integrate. Right after analysis, diba? When we know that there is significant relationship between the two, the past intel and the present intel, we now integrate the two. So, we now combine the elements stated in the assessment with other known information or intelligence to form a logical feature. So, i-combine na natin siya para masabi kung totoo ba talaga yan o hindi. And then we deduct. Okay? So, we formulate the conclusion from the analyzed and integrated information. And that is now our new intel. Diba? And kapag nabuo na yan, kapag deducted na yan into a new intel with a new meaning based from old and based from previous and present intelligence, then that is now our intelligence, which we will be disseminating in phase number 4. So when we say dissemination and use, this is the timely conveyance of intelligence information in an appropriate form and by any suitable means to those who need. Diba? Pag verified na yan, evaluated na yan, processed na, analyzed na, integrated na to past intel, and deducted na into a new intel, we are now ready to disseminate such information to what we call our decision makers. So what are the principles involved in the release of intelligence information or in the dissemination of information? Now, before we disseminate the intelligence, we have to remember two principles. Number one, the principle of the need to know. Diba? So what is need to know? Need to know states that only those person whose duties need access to information shall be given that information. In Tagalog, kung sino lang yung taong nangangailangan ng impormasyon dahil parte ng trabaho niya ang kailangan magkaroon ng access sa information na yon, siya lang ang dapat bigyan. What does it mean? Ibig sabihin, kahit gaano pa kataas ang ranggo mo, kung hindi naman parte ng trabaho mo ang magkaroon ng access sa information na yan, hindi ka dapat bigyan ng information na yan. That is the need to know principle. Sino lang yung may kailangan as part of their jobs, as part of their duties, they will only be the ones who will have access to such information. But, okay, but, before even if may need to know ka, before having access to that particular intelligence or to that particular information, you should first be cleared. Diba? Kailangan mo muna ng security clearance. So when we say security clearance, any person who wanted access to information should first be cleared by responsible authorities. You have to secure first na cleared ka nga to have access to that information. So, ibig sabihin, kahit pa may need to know ka, if you do not have the security clearance, you will not have access to the information. Okay? So, that is the two principles that we need to know before we disseminate and use information or intelligence. That is what the intelligence cycle is all about. Okay, now let's go to our special topic in police intelligence operations. So basically, these are the different strategies that the police officers or the members of our intelligence unit use in order to collect information. Ito yung iba-ibang diskarte nila para makakuha sila ng information. And the first one is procurement. Okay? When we say procurement, this is an aggressive effort to acquire certain specific information that may not be readily available. Now, let's take note of that particular first few words from that particular definition. Aggressive effort. Okay? Dito pala sa procurement na to, agresibo na. Okay, agresibo na yung paraan natin para makuha natin yung information. Why do we need to be aggressive? Because according to the phrase, the information is not readily available. Hindi kasi natin agad-agad makukuha yung information na yon. Masyadong closed yung source of information. So we need to have aggressive effort in order to get the information. And once you employ aggressive effort to get a not readily available information, then that is procurement. Okay? At meron tayong dalawang method in order to procure information. We can use classical intel or the use of human being to get the information, or we can use modern intel or the use of the modern technology in order to get the information. Okay? What is the essence of procurement? Before any procurement, bago pa tayo makapasok dyan, of course, we need to have access. Diba? Kahit gaano tayo ka-agresibo, kahit gaano natin gustong makuha yung information na yon, if we do not have access to the particular source of information, then wala tayong makukuha. Diba? So before any procurement, we have to have access first. Okay, so who are the procuring agents? So we have different procuring agents. We have the agent in place, yung andyan na dati pa, double agent, di ba? Yung agent mo na, agent din ng kalaban. Expendable agent, di ba? Penetration agent, agent of influence, and agent of provocation. And from the sound of their descriptions pa lang, makikita na natin na medyo agresibo nga talaga yung paraan dito para makuha yung information dito sa tinatawag natin na procurement. Okay? We have also overt versus covert method of intelligence. So just to give you a difference between the two terms, when we say overt, this is produced openly without regard as to whether the subject of the investigation becomes knowledgeable of the purpose for which it is being gathered. Ibig sabihin, openly natin ito ginagawa ba? Openly natin ginagawa yung pagkalap ng information. So, it could be done through the interview, the interrogation, instrumentation, research, investigation, and debriefing. And basically, if you employ those particular methods in gathering information, alam nung pagkukunan natin ng impormasyon na gusto talaga natin makakuha ng impormasyon sa kanya. Okay? So, once alam niya, then it becomes an overt collection method. While on the other hand, kapag sinabi naman natin na covert, the information here is obtained without the knowledge of the person against whom the information or documents may be used, or if the methods of procurement are done in an open manner. Okay? So this is covert. Hindi nila alam nung taong kausap natin na pag pinagkukunan pala natin silang impormasyon. Hindi alam nung ating pinagkukunan ng impormasyon na kumukuha pa lang tayo ng impormasyon sa kanya. Okay? So when we speak about covert intelligence, we have different methods to gather information. And the first covert intelligence gathering strategy is what we call elicitation. Okay, so what is this elicitation? So elicitation is a system or plan whereby information of intelligence value is obtained through direct communication. Take note of that word, okay? Direct communication. So napaka-importante nito because this will separate elicitation from all the others. Direct communication. Ibig sabihin, direct na nating kausap, di ba? Direkta nating kausap yung taong pagkukunan natin ng information. Only that, she or he is not aware. Hindi niya alam na kumukuha pala tayo ng information sa kanya. So it is very essential that the manner of questioning that we employ or that we do with the person from which we are gathering information from should be strategized. Okay? Di ba? Hindi pwede tayong magdirekta ng tanong, ay, sir, ikaw po ba yung leader nung mga kriminal? Hindi pwedeng ganun. Hindi na yung elicitation. Because if you ask that particular question, then he will know. Malalaman niya kung ano yung purpose mo, then instead of elicitation, that now becomes an interview. Diba? Parang sinimplehan mo na lang. So, para maging elicitation siya, we use devices. Diba? We have two devices in elicitation. The first one is what we call approach, and the second one is what we call probe. So, what is approach? When we say approach, that is setting people to start talking. Kailangan mapag-umpisa natin siyang mapagsalita. While on the other hand, kapag sinabi natin na probe, that is keeping people to continue talking. Kailangan mapagpatuloy natin siya magsalita. So what are the different strategies that we do in order to approach and in order to probe? So in approach, pwede tayong gumamit ng tinatawag natin na flattery. Diba? So, pwede natin sabihin na, ay sir, balita ko, ang dami mo daw pong alam dito sa impormasyon na to. Ano po ba yung masasabi niyo tungkol dito? Diba? Flattery. Pinipraise natin yung tao. Kasi merong mga tao na medyo mataas ang tingin sa sarili. Na once na pinipraise natin sila, ayun, mag-uumpisa na magtalak. Diba? We can also employ, instead of flattery, we can also use provocative. Diba? Ay, wala ka naman kasing alam din. Ano bang masasabi mo dyan? Diba? Parang hinahamon natin sila magsalita. And some other people naman, ganito. Diba? Kapag medyo nigipit mo sila, mas lalo sila magsasalita. So, those are the different strategies that we use in approach. Marami pa yan. Okay? You just have to strategize. You just have to check what are the different methods in approach when we talk about elicitation. While on the other hand, kapag probe naman, we can use competition. Diba? Parang kinakalaban natin yung kausap natin. So once na mag-umpisa na siya magsalita, para mapagpatuloy natin siya magsalita, parang linalabanan natin sila into a heated argument. Okay? Mga argumento natin. Okay? Competition. Or if not, we can use clarity. Diba? Magkukunwari tayo na hindi natin naiintindihan yung sinabi niya, so papaulitin natin sa kanya, papalinawin natin sa kanya. And from time to time, meron diyang mga nadadagdag na another pieces of information. Okay? High pressure. You can also use high pressure. itatrap natin siya para mas lalo siya magsalita. Or you can even use hypothetical approach or hypothetical probe. When we say hypothetical, magpe-present ka sa kanya ng isang sitwasyon. What if ganito, sir? What if blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that is hypothetical. In that manner, pwede mo siyang mapagpatuloy na magsalita. And that is all about elicitation. Okay? The second covert method of gathering information is what we call surveillance. So dito medyo familiar tayo, di ba? When we say surveillance, that is the covert observation of persons, places, or things. Now, the important term here is observation of persons, places, and things. Okay? So again, it is limited to observation. You do not necessarily penetrate. You do not necessarily go into. You do not employ aggressive effort in order to get the information. You simply observe. Okay, that is the essence of surveillance. What is your purpose? Of course, to obtain information concerning, in most cases, the identity or activities of suspected criminals. Right? But when we do surveillance, we're not only doing it to persons. Sometimes we can also do surveillance to places, and we can also do surveillance even to things. Okay? Now, if the surveillance is applied to persons, we call it tailing or shadowing. If the surveillance, on the other hand, is applied to places, then that is called casing or reconnaissance. Okay? And if the surveillance is applied to other matters, that is what we call roping. Okay? And this here, yung mga terms yan sa baba, these are the different terminologies that we use which is related to surveillance. So I'll just show you this one, and then I may not be able to define one at a time. Hindi na natin to i-discuss because from time to time kapag uh, if ever we'll meet or if ever we encounter that in a particular situation, then saka na natin siya bibigyan ng pansin. For now, at least you have an idea what those terminologies in surveillance is. Okay, so we have here area target studies, takeout, undercover, safe house, convoy, decoy, contact, made, burn, rabbit, trap, and lost. Okay, from time to time, dadaanan na lang natin siya, but not necessarily today. Okay, so that is surveillance. So the next covert method of gathering information is very familiar to all of us. Okay, no, it's not very familiar to all of us. So this is clandestine operation. So what is clandestine operation? So a clandestine operation is a secret action. Pasikreto ito. Hindi ito alam ng marami. Hindi ito alam ng marami. Even some members of the organization itself does not know regarding the clandestine operation. Kaya nga siya clandestine. Okay? So, this is basically done by an intelligence or counterintelligence organization. Okay? Remember, intelligence or counterintelligence. So, hindi lang ito active. Minsan passive din ito. Diba? Hindi lang ito kinuha for the sake of intelligence. But we also do clandestine operation in order to counter intelligence from other opposing parties, from the enemies. Okay? Organizations in behalf of the government. So this is the most important part here in the definition of clandestine operation. So we do the operation in behalf of the government, or if not, collateral, other friendly forces. Okay, so we have different classifications of a clandestine agent. We have the principal agent, we have action agent, and we have support agent. So medyo madami ang kailangan natin dito. Okay, so meron dyan leader, the principal agent. We have different action agents. We have their, with regards to action agent, we have the spies, we have the propagandists, the saboteurs, the guerrilla, the strongman, the provocateur, cover action agent. And we also have support agent. So, malakihan itong operation na to. Because the operation itself is um, a very big concern since on behalf of the government na ito. Okay? And in most cases, just to give you an idea, these kinds of operation are actually transnational. Diba? Yung clandestine operation natin, minsan, in most cases, transnational ito. So we don't get it from criminal organizations within the country, but we actually penetrate other country in order to conduct clandestine operations. Okay? So, usong-uso ito sa mga Hollywood films. And the last one, for the different covert methods of intelligence, police intelligence operation is what we call the wait, cover and undercover operation, or simply undercover. Diba? Undercover. So just to differentiate cover, when we say cover or covert story, when we say cover, that refers to any device by persons or organizations to ensure that one who does not have the right to know must continuously be aware of the real purpose or mission. So, kailangan natin itong gawin para masigurado na yung taong hindi niya dapat maalaman kung ano ka ba talaga, kung ano ba talagang ginagawa mo dyan, is really hanggang matapos yung mission, hindi niya dapat talaga malaman. So, these are form of stories. These are form of fake identities in order to cover nga the operation. Di ba? So, dito, gumagawa tayo ng fake identities. We assume another identity in order to cover ourselves, our real identity, in order not to compromise our mission. Now, if it is needed to create a story, then that is a cover story. For example, you are actually an agent. Okay? But for the sake of the mission, you have to pretend to have your own family. So parang titira kayo malapit doon sa area of operation nyo, magpapanggap kayong mag-asawa, yung isa doktor, ikaw ay teacher, meron kayong dalawang anak na currently nag-aaral, doon kayo titira. But the real purpose why you stayed there is not actually to live there, but to get information from the nearby enemy forces. Okay, so that is undercover operation. Okay? And yung kwento ng pagiging mag-asawa nyo, that is the cover story. Okay? So, in undercover operations, we can do it through natural cover, meaning we use the actual or true background. We can do it via artificial cover or cover within a cover and multiple cover. It depends on the situation. Okay, so that is cover and undercover operations. And the last part of our discussion for today will be all about counterintelligence operation. Okay, so when we say counterintelligence operation, this is the aspect of intelligence which in peace or in war, so it doesn't matter kung may gera ba o wala, is concerned with the detection, prevention, and neutralization of. Okay, so ito yung mga usually target ng counterintelligence. So this is the usual reasons why we do counterintelligence operation. That is to detect, okay, para malaman natin, ma-prevent natin, or ma-neutralize natin if we can espionage, yung pang-iispiya sa atin, pang-sasabotahe sa atin, at mga subversion or other inimical foreign intelligence activities through planning and developing suitable countermeasures. So how do we do those countermeasures? We can use human, diba? Then that is counter-human intel. We can use drones, okay, given the picture on the right. Then that is counter imagery intel. Or we can use signal interference. That is counter signal intel. Why do we do that? Again, in order to prevent, detect, and neutralize espionage, sabotage, subversion, or other inimical foreign enemy intelligence activities. Okay? Ika-counter natin yung penetration nila. Alright? So that is counterintelligence, and that is all about police intelligence operations. And that will be the end of our recorded video instruction for today. Again, maraming salamat sa pakikinig, and as always, I'll see you again next time for the next discussion in this particular subject, Fundamentals of Criminal Investigation Intelligence. And sa next video natin, uumpisahan na natin ang ating discussion sa criminal investigation. Okay? So, that will be all for today, and goodbye. Bye-bye.